Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. From today, we are going to start with a new topic, which is the physiology of nervous system. Nervous system is very important from your examination point of view. So, all of you must listen to the lectures very attentively. In today's lecture, we are going to study the structural and the functional organization of the nervous system. This is basically an introductory lecture, and we will discuss mainly the structural characteristics of the nervous system, different parts of the nervous system. And after we have finished the different parts of the nervous system, in the subsequent lectures we are going to study the functions of the nervous system. So first we are going to see what the nervous system is. Now, nervous system, it controls all the functions of the body. It not only controls the voluntary functions of the body, but also the involuntary functions of the body. Or we can say the nervous system is responsible for controlling the somatic as well as the autonomic functions of the body. It is basically a collection of the nerve cells which receive the sensory stimuli, integrate different stimuli, process the information which is received to the brain, to the nervous system, and then after processing all the information, it sends signals to different effector organs. So this is basically how the nervous system is organized to work. The basic structural and the functional unit is a neuron. The basic structural and the functional unit of the nervous system is a neuron, and the way by which the nervous system works is that it receives the information not only from the external environment of the body, but also from the internal environment of the body. And all the information which is received to the nervous system, it is integrated, it is processed, and then according to the received information, a response is formulated, and this response is then transmitted, it is conveyed to the different effector organs. Now, different effector organs can be your skeletal muscles, or these can be the smooth muscles, or the effector organ can be a cardiac muscle, or it can be a gland inside the body. So this is the structural and the functional unit of the nervous system, which is a neuron. You have studied the structure of neuron in detail when you studied the topic of nerve and muscle physiology. Here we are going to again revise it. So neuron, which is the structural as well as the functional unit of the nervous system, it has a cell body. This is the soma or the cell body. It has a long process which is called as axon, and multiple short processes which are known as the dendrites. So these are the dendrites of the neuron. This is the cell body. Inside the cell body there is a nucleus as well as the cytoplasm, which contains different cytoplasmic organelles, and then is the long process which is the axon. The axon can be myelinated or it can be unmyelinated. Here you can see this is a myelinated axon. So these are the Schwann cells surrounding the axons which form the myelin sheath, and the myelin sheath, you know that it is not continuous but it is interrupted, and these interruptions where the myelin sheath is absent is known as node of Ranvier. So this is the terminal part of the axon, so it is known as axon terminal. Here again it divides into small branches, and the axon terminals, they make synaptic connections with the other neurons. Similarly, dendrites also make synaptic connections with the other neurons, and you can see in this diagram the synaptic connections of the dendrites as well as the synaptic connections in the axon terminals. Now, neurons can be classified into different types. They can be either classified structurally or they can also be classified functionally. So first we are going to see what are the structural types of neurons, and then we will look into the functional types of the neurons. So according to the structure, there can be 4 types of neurons. According to the structure, there are 4 types of neurons, which include the unipolar neurons, bipolar neurons, pseudo-unipolar neurons, and multipolar neurons. So these different structural types of neurons are present in different parts of the brain. Unipolar neurons are called so because they have only one pole from which the axon arises. You can see this is a unipolar neuron having one pole only from which the long process or the axon arises. The bipolar neurons means a neuron having two poles. From one pole arises the axon, and from the other pole arises the short process which divides into dendrites. So bipolar neurons are there which have two poles. Then third type is the pseudo unipolar neuron. The pseudo unipolar neurons are called so because initially there is one pole arising from which the fiber arises from the cell body, but after some time, after a short distance, it divides into two, one forming the long process or the axon and the other forming the dendrites. So this is called as pseudo unipolar. Then we have multipolar neurons. In multipolar neurons, there are multiple sites on the soma or on the cell body from which the processes arise, and these are mainly the dendrites, while there is one single axon arising from the other side of the neuron. So these are different structural types of the neuron. Again, I am naming these structural types: the unipolar neurons, bipolar neurons, pseudo unipolar neurons, and multipolar neurons. Now coming to the functional types of the neurons. Now functionally the neurons can be divided either into sensory neurons, the motor neurons, or the interneurons. So functionally there are three types of neurons: sensory neurons, motor neurons, and interneurons. Now function of the sensory neurons is to carry the information from the periphery to the nervous system, to the central nervous system. So here is a diagram of a sensory neuron. It receives signals by the receptor cells. Receptor cells are specialized cells present in our body, and these receptor cells detect different stimuli, and stimuli are the changes in the internal and the external environment of the body. Again, I am repeating that receptors detect different stimuli within the body or outside the body. And what is a stimulus? Stimulus is a change in the internal or the external environment of the body. So receptors detect the changes. Receptors are excited by different stimuli. These receptors are innervated by the nerve fibers. So when receptors are stimulated, they are going to stimulate the nerve fiber, and these signals are generated which are transmitted by the neurons to the nervous system, to the central nervous system, where this information is going to be analyzed. So the function of sensory neurons is to transmit the information from the external and the internal environment of the body to the nervous system, to the central nervous system, where this information is going to be analyzed and processed, and in light of this information a response is going to be formulated. So the motor neurons are those types of neurons which will carry the motor signal. Motor signal is a response which is generated within the central nervous system. So motor neuron will carry this signal from the central nervous system to the periphery. So its direction of transmission of signal is opposite to the sensory neuron. Motor neurons carry the signal from the central nervous system to the peripheral parts of the body. So here we can see this is a motor neuron. It will receive the signal from the brain, from the central nervous system, and it will carry this signal through its axon to the here, like you can see here it is a muscle. So signal is transmitted through the motor neuron in this diagram to a muscle. So this is a motor neuron. Now coming to the third type of the neuron, third functional type of the neuron, that is the interneuron. Now interneurons are present in the brain and in the spinal cord, and interneurons are responsible to integrate the information within the nervous system. Sometimes the interneurons make connections between the sensory and the motor neurons, so that the information can be relayed from one part to the other part, or from one neuron to the other neuron. So interneurons are meant to integrate the nerve signals between different types of neurons. So we have functionally three types of neurons. We have sensory neurons carrying the information to the nervous system. We have motor neurons carrying the information from the motor nervous system to the periphery, to the effector organs, which can be muscles or which can be the glands. And in muscles we can have three types of muscles: the skeletal muscles for voluntary actions, and the cardiac muscles, obviously its control is involuntary, and for the smooth muscles again, which are involuntary in their control. And the interneurons are to integrate between different types of neurons. So these were the structural and the functional classification of the neurons. Now coming to the supporting structure of the nervous system. We just talked that the nervous system is composed of basically the nerve cells, which are the structural and the functional unit, and these nerve cells are neurons. Now these neurons are supported by certain types of cells in the nervous system, and these supporting cells in the nervous system are known as neuroglia. So neuroglia are the supporting tissue or the supporting structure present in the nervous system. Now these neuroglia are present in the central nervous system as well as in the peripheral nervous system. Now in the central nervous system there are four types of neuroglia: astrocytes, ependymal cells, oligodendrocytes, and microglia. Again I am repeating that neuroglial cells are the supporting structures present within the nervous system, and in the we have two main divisions of the nervous system: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. In the central nervous system, the types of the neuroglia which are present include the astrocytes, ependymal cells, oligodendrocytes, and microglial cells. Now the function of the astrocytes is that they help to maintain the blood-brain barrier. They help to maintain the blood-brain barrier, and they provide a structural support and help in regulation of the ionic, nutrient, and dissolved gas concentration within the brain. So the main function of the astrocytes is that they form the blood-brain barrier to check and balance the transport of different substances from the blood into the brain. Then are the ependymal cells. Now ependymal cells, these line the ventricles present in the brain, and they also line the central canal which is present in the spinal cord. Now ventricles in the brain are basically the fluid filled cavities present in different parts of the brain, and the fluid which is present in the ventricles is cerebrospinal fluid. Now cerebrospinal fluid is not only present in the ventricles, but it is also present in the central canal of the spinal cord. We are going to see these in the subsequent slides, inshallah. So ependymal cells line the ventricles, the cavities present within the brain, and they also line the central canal which is present within the spinal cord. And the function of the ependymal cells is to help in basically they produce, we should say, they produce the cerebrospinal fluid. They secrete the they secrete the cerebrospinal fluid. So the third type of the neuroglial cells are the oligodendrocytes. The function of the oligodendrocytes is to myelinate the axons in the central nervous system. So function of oligodendrocytes is to myelinate the axons. In the peripheral nervous system, the function of myelination is performed by the Schwann cells. So here you can see these are the axons, which are being myelinated by the ependymal cells. Sorry, the oligodendrocytes. Oligodendrocytes, they myelinate the axons, while ependymal cells, they secrete CSF or the cerebrospinal fluid. The fourth type of the sporting cells or the neuroglial cells in the nervous system, in the central nervous system, are the microglia or microglial cells. Now, microglial cells are responsible to remove the cell debris, waste, and they also remove the pathogens by process of phagocytes. So these are phagocytic cells present within the central nervous system. Again, I am repeating, the fourth type of neuroglial cells in the central nervous system are the microglia, and microglia, they are the phagocytes present within the central nervous system, and their function is to remove the debris, waste, and the pathogens by a process of phagocytosis. Now, in the peripheral nervous system, there are two types of glial cells or the sporting structures, the sporting cells present, the Schwann cells and the satellite cells. Now, the Schwann cells, they are these are the cells which are responsible for myelination of the peripheral nerves. They surround the axons of the neurons in the peripheral nervous system, and these are responsible for myelination of the peripheral axons. And in central nervous system, this function is performed by the oligodendrocytes. And the satellite cells, these are responsible for the detection of the, you can say, the neurons present in the ganglia. Now, what is a ganglion? Ganglion is a collection of cell bodies of the neurons outside the nervous system. The collection of these cell bodies of the neurons outside the nervous system is known as ganglion. Ganglion is a singular word and the plural is ganglia. So ganglia are surrounded by the satellite cells. So these are different types of the supporting structures present within the nervous system. Now we are going to see the different parts of the nervous system. So basically there are two divisions of the nervous system. We have the central nervous system and we have the peripheral nervous system. Now, central nervous system is composed of the brain and the spinal cord. So brain and spinal cord, these form the central nervous system, while peripheral nervous system is formed by the peripheral nerves, which can be motor nerves, sensory nerves, mixed nerves can be there. These also contain the autonomic fibers, and ganglion is also the part of the peripheral nervous system. Again, I am repeating that nervous system is organized basically into two, we can say it is divided into two parts, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. In central nervous system, we have the brain and the spinal cord. Brain, it is present within the skull, and the spinal cord, it is present in the vertebral column. And we have the peripheral nervous system, which is formed by the nerve and the ganglia. The nerves are the collections of the axons, and ganglia are the collections of the cell bodies outside the nervous system. Now this slide is very important. It tells us basically the hierarchy of the nervous system, the way by which the nervous system is going to work out to control different functions of the body. We have briefly discussed in the beginning of the lecture. Now we are going to see it in detail कि किस तरह से the nervous system is going to function to help in control of different bodily functions. So we'll start from here, the receptors. So I just told you that receptors, these are specialized cells which are these are basically the parts of our sensory system, and these are sensory structures. These are specialized cells which detect the changes in the internal environment of the body or in the external environment outside the body. So if there is any change in the external environment, like there is change in the temperature, which is detected by the thermal receptors present in our skin, or if there is is a painful stimulus applied to the skin, so this will also be detected by the receptors present in our skin and the subcutaneous tissue. So, or if there is a change in the internal environment of the body, like there is change in the blood pressure, which is detected by the baroreceptors. So any change in the external or the internal environment of the body, it is detected by the receptors. These are specialized cells to detect the changes in the external and internal environment of the body. Now the receptors can be somatic sensory receptors, or these can be specialized sensory receptors, or these can be the visceral sensory receptors. Now somatic sensory receptors, they detect the changes like they detect the changes like the change in the position, touch, pressure, pain, temperature, sensations. Now here let me tell you that a change is a stimulus, and perception of the change is called a sensation. Again, I am repeating, the change in the external or the internal environment of the body is a stimulus, and perceiving that change is called the sensation. So the somatic receptors, they detect the somatic sensations, and our somatic sensations are the sense of position, touch, pressure, pain, temperature, etc. We are going to study it in detail when we are going to study the sensory system. Then we have specialized sensory receptors, which are meant to detect these special sensations. Like we have special sensation for the sensations, smell, taste, vision, and hearing, and balance. So these are these special sensations, and for these sensations there are specialized receptors present in our different parts of the body. Like for the sight, for the vision, we have eyes, and inside the eyes we have photoreceptors. For hearing, we have ears, and for inside the ears we have the receptors for hearing. And for taste, we have taste buds present on the surface of the tongue. So we have specialized sensory receptors for special sensations. Then visceral sensations are also there, and for that we have visceral sensory receptors, and these are present in different organs within the body. Now all these type of receptors, when these are stimulated by their respective sensations, they will generate the nerve signals, which will be carried by the sensory division of the peripheral nervous system. So there are sensory nerves in the peripheral nervous system, which will carry the information from the receptors, which are present either in the peripheral tissues or in the organs. They will carry this sensory information to the central nervous system. Now central nervous system, it consists of brain and spinal cord. When it will receive information, it will integrate the information, process the information, coordinate all the sensory input which is received to it, and in light of all the information, it is going to generate a motor command. Now motor command which is generated will be carried from the central nervous system through the motor division of the peripheral nervous system. So motor division of the peripheral nervous system will carry the information from the brain to the peripheral tissues and systems. Now again, it can be divided. The motor division of the peripheral nervous system is further subdivided into somatic part and the autonomic part. In the somatic nervous system, the information or the signals, they will be transmitted to the either skeletal muscles for the control of the contraction of the skeletal muscles. While in case of autonomic part of the peripheral nervous system, it is going to regulate the autonomic functions, like the functions or the contractions of the smooth muscles, cardiac muscles, the glands present in the body which produce different kinds of secretions, exocrine and the endocrine glands, and the adipose tissue. So in case of autonomic nervous system, the effector organs or the cells can be smooth muscles, cardiac muscles, glands, and the adipose tissue. and in the case of somatic division of the peripheral nervous system, that is the somatic motor division of the peripheral nervous system, the effector cells are the skeletal muscles. So that's how the nervous system is going to work to control all the functions of the body. Now we are going to study different parts of the nervous system in detail. Now we have just discussed that the nervous system is divided into the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system. The further division of the peripheral nervous system is quite simple, and we have almost discussed in the previous slide that it has an autonomic division and it has a somatic division. Somatic division is both sensory and the motor, and as well as it contains the autonomic fibers. Sorry, the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. In somatic we have the sensory and the motor division, and in autonomic nervous system again we have sensory fibers carrying the information to the central nervous system, and we have the motor division of the autonomic nervous system. And the motor division of the autonomic nervous system is further of two types: the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Now coming to the parts of the central nervous system. Now central nervous system is composed of two main parts, the brain and the spinal cord. Now brain, it is further divided into different parts. There are three main divisions of the brain: the forebrain, midbrain and the hindbrain. Again I am repeating that the central nervous system is composed of brain and spinal cord. The brain is further divided into three parts: the forebrain, midbrain and the hindbrain. Now forebrain जो है, it is further divided into the telencephalon and the diencephalon. Forebrain is further divided into, it has two parts, telencephalon and diencephalon. Now telencephalon is formed by mainly the cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is in form of two hemispheres, which are each half is called as the cerebral hemisphere. Cerebral cortex is in two halves and each half is known as cerebral hemisphere. Telencephalon, the main part of which is the cerebral cortex, then basal ganglia, hippocampus and amygdala, they are also part of the telencephalon. The other part of the forebrain is the diencephalon. Other part of the forebrain is the diencephalon. Now diencephalon is formed by it consists of thalamus and hypothalamus. So in forebrain we have cerebral cortex, which has two halves. Each half is called as cerebral hemisphere. We have right cerebral hemisphere and we have the left cerebral hemisphere, and it also has the thalamus and the hypothalamus. Thalamus and hypothalamus together are known as diencephalon. Now coming to the midbrain. Now midbrain, it is also known as mesencephalon. Midbrain is also known as mesencephalon. It has different parts like tectum and tegmentum. So this is the midbrain. Then is the hindbrain. Hindbrain, it has two parts, the metencephalon and the myelencephalon. The third part of brain is the hindbrain. It has two parts, the metencephalon and the myelencephalon. The metencephalon consists of pons and cerebellum, and myelencephalon consists of medulla oblongata, or simply you can memorize it as that hindbrain composed of three parts, the pons, medulla and cerebellum. Hindbrain is composed of three parts, the pons, cerebellum and medulla. There is another part of the brain known as brain stem. Now brain stem is basically formed by the medulla oblongata, pons and midbrain. Midbrain, pons and medulla together are known as brain stem. So brain stem is different from hindbrain. In hindbrain you have pons, medulla and cerebellum, and in brain stem you have the medulla oblongata, pons and midbrain. So these are different parts of the brain. Now we are going to see all these parts of the brain that we just have learned. You can see here, this is the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord. Brain is present within the bony cavity within the cranium or the skull, and it has different parts. We have just enumerated the parts of the brain, and this is the spinal cord which is present within the vertebral column. You can see this is the vertebral column, and in it is present the spinal cord. Here are the different parts of the brain. This is the cerebrum, which is a part of the forebrain, and I just told you that the cerebrum or the cerebrum is composed of, it is made up of two halves, and each half is called a cerebral hemisphere. You can see here one hemisphere, and it has different lobes. We are going to see it in detail, the parts of the cerebral hemispheres. So next part of the brain is thalamus. Here you can see this is a thalamus, and along with the hypothalamus, all these parts together form the forebrain. Then we have the mesencephalon. Here it is not shown. I will show you it in the next diagram. Then we have the hindbrain, which is formed by the cerebellum, pons and the medulla. So these are different parts of the brain. Here you can see very clearly the different parts of the brain. This is the cerebrum, cerebral hemisphere, which is the part of forebrain. Now you can see that the cerebral hemisphere or the cerebrum, it is thrown into it has some elevations and it has depressions. So these are the depressions here, and these are the depressions, and these are the elevations. The elevations in the cerebral cortex are known as gyri, and the depressions are known as the sulci. So these are different sulci. This is again a sulcus. Singular is sulcus and the plural is sulci. So cerebral hemisphere or the cerebrum, it is thrown into elevations and depressions. Elevations are gyri, singular is gyrus. Here as you can see, precentral gyrus, gyrus is singular, and plural is gyri. And sulcus is singular, which is the depression, and plural is sulci. So we have sulci and gyri in the cerebral hemisphere. Now each cerebral hemisphere, it is divided into different lobes. This is the central sulcus. In front of the central sulcus we have the frontal lobe. Frontal lobe, this entire is the frontal lobe. And behind the central sulcus we have the parietal lobe, and the most posterior part of the cerebral hemisphere is the occipital lobe. So these are the three lobes, and the fourth lobe is the temporal lobe. Here you can see this is the temporal lobe present on the lateral sides of each cerebral hemisphere. Again I am repeating that each cerebral hemisphere, it has four lobes: the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe and the temporal lobe. The frontal lobe mainly it has the motor functions. It contains the neurons which generate the motor activity. The parietal cortex mainly is sensory. It receives the information from all parts of the body. The occipital lobe is concerned with the reception and integration and analysis of the visual information. So each part of the brain performs different functions. We are going to study in detail later on. So these are the parts of the cerebral hemisphere. Now you can see in this diagram, this is the thalamus and this is the hypothalamus. Now thalamus is a part of the brain which is called as a relay station. So all the information to the brain, all the sensory information which is carried to the brain, it passes through the thalamus. It is relayed first in the thalamus, and then it is transmitted to the brain or to the cerebral cortex. So thalamus is a very important part of the brain and is also known as the relay station. Then hypothalamus, it also has important endocrine and autonomic functions to be performed by it. Then we have the this is the midbrain part, and you can see this is the aqueduct of the midbrain. And then next part of the brain is the these are the pons, and this is the medulla, and this is the cerebellum. And cerebellum also has two halves, and each half of the cerebellum is called as a cerebellar hemisphere. Cerebellar hemisphere. So cerebellum, pons and medulla form the hindbrain. In between the hindbrain and the forebrain we have the midbrain, which is also called as mesencephalon. So these are the different parts of the brain. Now different parts of the brains, that is the cerebral cortex, they are divided into different areas. There are different ways to classify there are two ways basically to divide or to classify the cerebral cortex into different areas. One way of classification is the Brodmann's classification, and the other one is the functional classification. Now Brodmann classification may the brain or the cerebral cortex, it is divided into different areas which are given numbers, as you can see in this diagram. So Brodmann area, basically it is a region of the cerebral cortex which is defined by its cytoarchitecture or histological, structural or organization of the neurons. So Brodmann areas classification is basically, it is based on the types of the neurons and their structural and histological characteristics. So we have different Brodmann areas which are named as 1, 2, 3. You can see different numbers are given. So this is called as Brodmann classification. While in functional classification, different names are given to the areas or the parts of the cerebral cortex. Like in this diagram you can also see Broca's area, auditory area, Wernicke's area, area for cognition, visual area. So these are the other way functional classification we can say. This is the Brodmann classification, and then functionally we can divide it according to the function. Like a few areas we have just named. There are more areas in the brain, like we have the sensory areas. One of the sensory area is the primary somatic cortex, which is present behind the central sulcus. This is the central sulcus, and in front of central sulcus we have the primary motor cortex. So this is the functional classification of the cerebral cortex. Then we have the speech area, Broca's area. I just told you it is the motor speech area. Then you have the sensory speech area, which is called as Wernicke's area, and we have areas for audition which are concerned with hearing, and visual areas. So these are the different ways to classify the cerebral cortex into different parts. When we are going to study different functions of the brain, we are going to study these parts as well there in our discussion. So this was about the structure of the brain. The other part of the central nervous system is the spinal cord. We will just have a brief introduction of the spinal cord, and then I will stop, and we will continue the rest of the structure of the spinal cord and its detail in the next lecture. So spinal cord, basically it is a long thin tubular structure which is again made up of obviously the nervous tissue. It's a tubular structure made up of nervous tissue. Spinal cord, it extends from the medulla medulla oblongata, which is the part of the hindbrain, and it extends to the lumbar region of the vertebral column. The extension of the spinal cord is from medulla to the lumbar region of the vertebral column. The spinal cord, it ends up between the first and the second lumbar vertebra. I am repeating that the spinal cord, it ends up between the first and the second lumbar vertebra. Function of the spinal cord, although we are going to discuss it in detail later on, just to briefly describe, it functions primarily in the transmission of nerve signals from the motor cortex to the body and from the afferent fibers of the sensory neurons to the sensory cortex. So it is basically a pathway carrying information, carrying the nerve fibers to the brain, and and from the brain again carrying the nerve fibers to the periphery. So transmission, it helps in the transmission of the nerve signals between the brain and the periphery. So I will stop here and we will continue with the structural organization of the spinal cord in the next lecture. I hope you understand the lecture, and if you have a query, you can ask questions. Thank you so much.